All right, everybody. Welcome to the Murphyverse. This is our first live stream back after the holiday break. Not holidays, Christmas break. Okay. Merry Christmas, everybody. I do not support the war on Christmas. I say Merry Christmas to people. Not because I'm a white person, not because I'm a Christian, but just because it's what I celebrate. Like Jewish people should say to me, Happy Hanukkah. I'm cool with that. This Happy Holidays stuff is bullshit. Even if you're Jewish, even if you celebrate Kwanzaa or whatever, like you should the anti-war on Christmas sect should be a multicultural sect. That's my take for the moment. Anyway, welcome everybody. It's good to be back on there. I might be a little rusty. Forgive me if so. I've been getting fat, eating and drinking a lot of beer the past few days and not working out. So if my skin looks shitty or I look chubby or I'm kind of stupid, all of those could be possibly true. I don't know. Forgive me. Anyway, we are today going to be joined in just a few minutes by an interesting internet person. I see him hanging tight in the wings, by the way. What's up, dude? Hang tight. I'll just do a little intro and then I'll bring you in. Because I want to give everyone a little bit of housekeeping because I'm kind of, with the new year and all, I am introducing some changes to the system here. So as my show grows, it's getting kind of easier to get bigger, quote unquote, bigger and bigger guests. And that's fun and all, but I want to stick to my roots and always make time to have just weird, unpredictable conversations with like truly random internet people in the course of perusing Twitter or blogs or whatever. You just sometimes encounter a random tweet and you're just kind of like, wonder who's behind that, or wonder what's going on here, or I wonder what I can learn from this random person you encounter. And that's always been a kind of a part of my brand, I guess, is like just weird internet people you've never heard of who are interesting to talk to anyway. So people enjoy that. And I want to stick to those roots, even though I'm, currently being barraged by people like, Neil deGrasse Tyson and Joe Rogan. I mean, they're like knocking down my door, but I'm telling them, hold on, hang on. I'm gonna still make some time for my people on the internet. So what I'm doing is I'm gonna have I'm gonna experiment with a few different series or segments, if you will. Some of the shows on the podcast, live stream / podcast, that's the same thing. If you don't know, there's also a podcast version of this live stream. If you only watch on YouTube, I'll remind you that there's a podcast also. So this other live show, I'm going to do a few different types. And one is going to be short talks with random internet people. So I'll reserve the longer talks because sometimes these podcasts can run to 2 hours, sometimes even 3 hours. Those will be for, the special circumstances where that is warranted. That's not always warranted. For random people off the internet, you often don't know what they're going to be like. You don't know who you're going to be dealing with. So sometimes that's been really fun and really good. Sometimes it's been, lackluster, let's say. And so since you don't really know that, to account for that, what I'm doing is I'm going to keep doing talks with random people on the internet here and there, but those ones will be more in the 30-minute range, maybe 45 minutes if it's good or whatever. So I'm going to call those the sidebars, where like I'm interacting with someone on Twitter and I just want to pull them aside for a focused conversation. Like in the courtroom, they call that a sidebar when the judge and the lawyers, they get off to the side to have a chat. So these short sidebars with random internet people will just be shorter. That way, if someone sucks, it won't be too boring for too long. It's kind of where I'm getting at with all that. But I'm, so far my history of doing these things they've almost all been quite cool and interesting and rewarding. So not throwing shade on anyone. So this will be the first in a series like that. Okay. And today we're going to be talking with someone who I encountered on Twitter recently. He is, I don't know much about him. He'll introduce himself, but the main things I know about him is he is part of the ecosystem at Oberlin, a school that's very well known for being a liberal arts college. So I think it'll be interesting now that I'm, more than 10 years out from my undergraduate experience. I think something I'm very interested in is having conversations and keeping lines open with people who kind of represent the younger generation and who are actively involved in, on campuses today. I think that's a very interesting source of information because I think the younger generation is very different than a lot of people think it is. So that's one of my interests, which many of you know. And another thing is that he is a admin of the Facebook group called The Barrel 2. And for those of you who might not know, there's a whole weird ecosystem of kind of weird theory Facebook groups. And most people know me as like in the weird theory Twitter sphere. I'm not really active on Facebook personally. I can't stand it. But there are people, I think especially younger people, who have made Facebook work for them. And there are interesting ecosystems of both intellectual community and also kind of meme shitposting types of communities, and a combination thereof. So I don't know much about the Barrel 2, but I know it's adjacent to like Elliot Rosenstock's group and other groups. And this is just a kind of weird internet world that I'm very interested in. And so this person we're going to be talking with today is kind of he represents sort of the intersection of a few of these different kind of interests of mine, and he'll kind of rep these particular interesting kind of subspaces of society. Other than that, I don't know anything about him, so I'm just going to bring him in, and that's that. So before I do that, I'd like to always say big thanks to my patrons. Very grateful. I would not be able to do any of this stuff if it wasn't for all the patrons who, give me a little bit of money each month. So just want to express my gratitude. You make this possible. So thanks, patrons, if you're out there, as I'm sure you are. All right, let's get on with it then. Yeah, here we go.
All right. What's up, Justin Murphy?
What's up, dude?
Yeah. So, I think basically I'm like kind of Zoomer millennial cusp. If you've ever seen these like these cool art girls, I respect women, so I don't want to use bad language for them. They're kind of they say they're like a Aries Taurus cusp, but I'm basically like Zoomer millennial cusp.
Okay. Yeah, I figured you were a Zoomer. That's kind of what I had you pinned.
Yeah.
Cool. How old are you?
This is about 24 right now.
Yeah.
Are
you wearing a bathrobe?
No, this is a kimono. It's got an extreme power level. Came from a Goodwill in middle of nowhere, Ohio, for about $10. Cool. I just want to get my virile masculinity out, so I don't appear like I'm soy gendered. One of these newer people who's kind of not down with the trad mask thing.
Right. Well, I'm sure the comment section will be telling us very soon if you're a soy boy or not. So we'll get that sorted.
It's good. I want to say like there are some serious soy boys like Yukio Mishima. He probably had like tons of miso. That was kind of bad for him. I think he shouldn't have done that.
I like how you talk like you're a Zoomer shitposter.
Yeah. All right. So you want the philosophy?
No. Let's go slower. Let's go slower than that.
Okay.
Let's really work them into it. We don't want to explode their brain too quick.
Okay. It's good.
So, first of all, tell us. Let's start with the Barrel 2 group. What is the Barrel 2 group on Facebook? What is its kind of ideological center of gravity?
I'm gonna say that it's very rhizomatic. Something kind of a dialectical rhizome. There's something about it that's like conflicting forces. It came out of specifically concrete. We can say it's sort of a Foucauldian tactics, a method of like pure discursive pragmatics against some select actors who are mostly British Tories, like schoolboy Tories. Who
American. You're American, right?
Oh yeah.
So what do you care about British Tories?
They were just being a little too epic. I don't know what else there is to say. They were out there. They were like, wow, this is philosophy. You ever hear like Kant jokes like, I can't perceive the noumenon. That was kind of their vibe. So we were like, this is epic. We got to take it down a ratchet, a few links. So we finally had the we had to start a sequel. There was something about it that was like really special. And I don't know, I think Deleuze speaks of like a pure difference in some sense, that it's like about positing. We didn't want to go into the simple like dialectical phrase of negating. The Barrel 2 is sort of like it's positing some things on the plane of immanence. It's about the repetition of images. For instance, here we have a very deep take on Big Chungus. We're very dedicated to bringing back Big Chungus memes. There's something about him that's just like very special. But yeah, basically there's just some like
wait. Remind me of the Big Chungus meme. What is that?
It's like, I don't know. It's kind of like a absolute unit. It's sort of like a monad. It's like existing like on the frame of positivity on the plane of immanence.
Well, you just explained an obscure meme with another obscure meme, pretty much. So I'm gonna Google it, and we're going to
It's
look
a
into it.
fat big as Bugs Bunny, but I think it speaks to something about the presence of the image.
Okay, I'm gonna play this, and I would like you to explain it as it's going.
Oh yeah.
Can you hear that?
No, I can't hear. It's a good song though.
People should be able to hear it. Hang on, let me see if that's playing. In the chat, in the comments, tell me if you can hear that or not. I think it should be. All right, so explain to me what we're listening to.
There's a lot of media stuff going on here. I don't know. It just you have to understand like the ironic reappropriation of memes, but it's like a sort of meta irony. It's taking a lot from like David Foster Wallace. It's about a new sincerity of the meme.
Okay.
Through repetition, something new comes out. It's not simply like a repetition of the same. It's not, here is Big Chungus, we are enjoying Big Chungus. It's making something new. So the Barrel 2, as a sequel to these groups of British schoolboys, it was sort of like this very direct attack, I think, on the deep conservatism that comes from a sort of, place about a deterritorialization of internet signifiers, which works towards sort of a new conception, a new idea. It's not two as in, a repetition of the one. It's two as in, and not two as in, the sort of Medusian concept of the dialectic. It's two as sort of, it's something that places it on a different register. It's creating something new, a moment of affirmative difference. Repetition signifies something fresh.
Okay, that's what the Barrel 2 represents.
Yeah. I mean, it's also just a bunch of nonsense. I don't know.
Yeah, well, we'll leave that part of the conversation there then. And why don't you tell us when did you first start memeing in your life? Like, how old were you when you first started? Like, when you first went on a computer and you did some kind of political, philosophical meme activity?
Let's see. I don't know. I qualify myself as sort of being part of the old internet. I feel like a lot of Zoomers started getting on 2014. But I've probably been online since 2007. So it's what is that phrase? It's eternal September or something. I think it's that thing about yeah. So I mean, I'm not not the true old guard, but I don't know. I think I've had a encyclopedic memory of pure garbage since I was probably about somewhere about 12 or so.
So I'm genuinely curious that these Facebook groups that one of which is the Barrel 2. There are many groups like this. It's kind of the way I would describe it is, it seems like the center of gravity is quite young in terms of age, and they're very hard to pin down ideologically. It's often just a kind of irreverent posting of memes and kind of weirdly combined, decontextualized political symbols in a way that's just kind of fun and provocative. First of all, is that a fair way to summarize it? You can take issue with any of that if you want to. And if I'm right that at a high level, in a generic way, that's essentially what we're describing with these Facebook groups that the Barrel 2 represents. How would you diagnose more specifically, what is the purpose of this sort of group? Why are you active? Why do you invest yourself in? What does it mean to you?
Oh boy.
And be serious for now, if you would.
Do you want?
I'm cool with you. I'm cool with you, kind of fucking around with me, but I also want to try to get some serious stuff out of you.
Do you want a political diagnosis or a personal sense of meaning from it?
Personal sense of meaning, yeah, actually.
I think there's something very interesting about the sort of sense that one is kind of living on the decayed body of capital. I really mean this, that Facebook represents probably the worst excesses of fucking modern day capitalism. This complete I don't it's something that I feel is kind of signal jamming, but it also represents sort of the older elements of Chan culture that I liked more. I don't know. I feel like the world we live in is kind of coming closer to the 4-channel universe than it used to in some sense. You know, there's like, you can look at your like goddamn news websites. You can look at Reddit. You can look at fucking Facebook or Twitter. There's like basically like very few like sources of stuff. The sort of older internet that I'm familiar with is the one that still had bulletin boards, web forums, you know, like a wide variety of things that existed. There's something about it that I think is like the sort of culture that exists on post left book, as it's referred to, has a certain, I don't know, it's probably like the most inventive nonsense I've seen in a while. Because I mean, like, I don't know, just like look at the fucking front page of Reddit. It's epic. I hate it. Like, what is this? Oh, look, it's the Baby Yoda meme. Oh, does anyone else remember Game of Thrones? That's so cool. You're just having a nice like little consumptive experience. I think that like older forms are very much interested in like the perversity of the image, or the ways in which images could be perverted or reused for like interesting symbolic ends. That doesn't really exist anywhere except in sort of like the post left book sphere, I think. And a lot of that is also like, you know, garbage. But yeah, there's like a concerted like loss, I think, of like originality on the net to which these groups sort of represent. But I think that's very much personal to me because I don't know specifically how many other people like have that experience of, I think, the older forms of internet culture.
Right. Would you say that the online political philosophy meme groups are they also somewhat a way of coping with a kind of lackluster or somewhat even oppressive kind of IRL social life? In other words, like I imagine being a young man on a college campus nowadays is not the kind of, you know, most relaxed and fun place to be when it comes to like speaking creatively and provocatively with people around you, making jokes and being interested in edgy philosophies and stuff like that. I imagine it's probably difficult to do that IRL in various types of like on campus social settings. So are all the meme groups on Facebook kind of like a substitute for that, or a way of creating kind of like interesting, fun, nonsensical political and philosophical exchanges, and that exercising that kind of freedom in a context where it's hard to do that in IRL spaces?
I mean,
or am I just reading too much into it as a millennial?
I honestly, I think cancel culture is kind of dead. You know, it's a phenomenon that exists that's predominantly linked to like blue checkmark Twitter. What is that? What is that person, like Sarah Rao or whatever? You know, figures like that. If you're like on campus basically anywhere, you're not probably like, no one cares. I think that like one of the only people that the only like true like philosophy bro soffer or like theory bro, there's a general derision towards theory bros, but the only person I've met who's like been extremely ostracized is a literal abuser. And even then they like only got canceled in like one part of the college because they were in the music program.
And this is at Oberlin?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying that's interesting. So from your perspective, you're a student, right?
Yeah, but I mean,
You're a student and you do some instruction there too?
I'm a doctor undergrad, basically.
Oh, you have a PhD, but you started an undergrad again? What?
No, I just like act like I'm a PhD student because I've been stuck in school for about 6 years now for a variety of reasons.
But you told me you do instruction there also as a student. Yeah, that's cool. So how long have you been at Oberlin?
This would be a year and a half. But I've been at like a bunch of institutions for strange reasons, so it's not.
But this is interesting though, because so you're saying that your sense of things is that cancel culture is really not a big problem anymore on college campuses as far as you can feel it or see it.
I have been in school since the fall of 2015. I originally started at a theater program in Boston. This is the moment for people to comment and say you're a soy boy cuck, by the way. You know, I'm a real degenerate. Fuck.
It's okay. They say that to me every single time, and yet they keep coming back to watch my show, so whatever.
Yeah, but I started there, and it was the run up to 2016. And that was an epic year. But I mean that was like the genuine year of cancel culture, like the moment at which like I got like a good deal of, I think, like deep personal resentment because I embodied sort of the typology of what I think people thought was the evil in America.
Mm.
And I've sort of experienced like the downward trend since then. So I've like transferred 2 times, to which this is, I think, like the last case at which I like finally finished off.
That's cool.
But like,
Do you feel like also that it's kind of becoming cooler to be edgy?
no, it's just people don't care. Like
Because
they,
I saw some tweets recently that someone was saying like, I think I saw this on 4chan actually. Someone was saying that like a few years ago it was like most of the college students were kind of like social justice warriors, and now it's like cool to be interested in neo reaction and stuff like that. I wasn't sure if that's true or not.
I mean, I'm like maybe someone like me is like, oh yeah, maybe we should look at Mencius Moldbug or something to see how epic he is. I like did a little bit where I like taught Nick Land, but I mean it's not. I don't really know what to make of it, since I think that in many ways I still exemplify the sort of like Foucauldian academic sensibility. But like, it's not that I see like people who are like edgy NRX Zoomers who are like cryptos or anything. It's just that like what you get now is like they're just fucking Warren voters. Like I don't know what else to say. It's like, oh man, you know, Liz Warren is very progressive. Like it's like really weird because like the one of the things that I'm here for is like the politics department, which is full of like Marxists, like old core, like old school Marxists. Like the kids listen to them, but like they're still like Warren voters. Like they don't care. Like, you know, sometimes they'll be like sort of like nominally progressive, like, you
Or
know,
Sanders voters probably too, right?
no, not even really. It's like these people
Okay.
are like progressive libs. Like
Mhm.
you know, we can always say that there was the Radlib archetype of the past, you know, this sort of like epic thing where it was like, you know, let's go out here and cancel some old white men. But like it doesn't even exist. Like I don't know anyone like that.
Mhm.
Like there are like a few people who I think are sort of like post-capitalist anarchists that I would characterize as being nominally what we used to refer to as the Sijua, but like even then they don't resemble it. Like the kind of Tumblr core thing has moved on to the PMC people you see on Twitter. What you have is a bunch of like people who are very ambivalent PMC like go-getters. There's no NRX Zoomers, there's no like real interesting progressives, there's just the desert of the real, man. It's got, yeah, I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, I hear that. I hear that. So, how much time do you spend on the barrel too? Because you're an admin, right? So, like, is that a fair amount of work or no?
No, it's not really at all.
But you have to approve posts and stuff like that. Like, do you no?
I don't do any admin work. I probably like, you know, like check my phone like 5 times a day, but that's for the most part, you know, I just do some boring stuff. I've been doing some reading here.
Interesting. So, do you have any read on kind of the contemporary political, philosophical meme culture and like why it matters, or what you find interesting about it, moving away from kind of your personal take on it, more towards how you see it, more empirically or from a bird's eye view?
I mean, it's obviously fairly much derivative of continental theory. No one is name dropping Nozick and Rawls, for instance. Sometimes a bit shamefully.
And it's mostly the group that you're in, the barrel too. It's mostly left leaning, is that right?
I would say so. It represents, I think, the contingent of yeah, probably left post-structuralists.
Right, but they're not like precious about it. It's kind of mostly jokes and
It's not. It's non-philosophical, I think.
right. Yeah. Are you a member of other? Are you active online otherwise or no?
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, I spend most of my days just chilling out, playing some video games.
And are you like, do you self-identify as a theory bro?
I'll say so. I'll say so.
Yeah.
I think.
Is that a word that you use IRL? Like, do you and your friends that you hang out with IRL, do you talk verbally in these words like, oh, that's cringe, bro. Oh, dude, that's an absolute unit you got there.
I got to say we don't use the absolute unit, but I think I've like been compulsorily addicted to saying cringe and based every day.
Okay. So are most of your friends IRL like into the same kind of subcultures you're into online?
I feel like it's a pretty wide diversity that I don't think many of them actually directly partake, but they're all interested, I think, in the. Yeah, most of the people that I talk to probably are like vaguely interested in philosophy, but I mean I have like a wide variety of people that I know that are like not net kids in quote marks.
Okay, interesting. How about Nick Fuentes? What's his story? He's a Zoomer.
Who is that guy? I feel like I've heard.
He's like, you don't have to look him up if you don't know. It doesn't matter. But it's kind of funny. I mean, I don't like. I'm not like in his audience, but I come across him. I see him on the internet a lot, and I think some people who watch my stuff maybe watch his stuff because he's mentioned every now and then in the chat. He's just kind of interesting because he's a Zoomer, but he's like this kind of really aggressive kind of like internet personality, and he has like this like YouTube show where it's like it's got like a New York City skyline in the background, kind of like those like he's a news anchor or something like that. So he's like this kind of like you know, kind of like startup internet news anchor, but he's like a Zoomer, and he's reactionary. So he's like kind of into like nationalism and stuff. I think is what I gather, like American nationalism. But the reason I find these developments interesting is because I'm interested in kind of the larger dynamics of internet subcultures and where is all of this going. So if you give me a particular persona, I'm mostly interested in them as an example of what they represent in the larger kind of system dynamics. And what's interesting about someone like Nick Fuentes is the way he's right now, he's really climbing in kind of attention by attacking Ben Shapiro. And it seems increasingly obvious to me that this is an easily reproducible and repeatable format, right? Like Ben Shapiro did very well for himself, kind of creating his own persona and his own platform, and succeeded quite well just by being that kind of aggressive, straight talking, whatever, like conservative libertarian type of dude who didn't care for, people call him cringy or whatever, and he didn't care, right? He just kind of went rapid fire and attacking people. And if you do that, you kind of climb to the top. But then it's clear that if you climb to the top that way, then there's an opportunity for other people to be just a little bit more radical in the same direction and a little bit more aggressive to kind of attack you and climb in that way also. So if that is in fact a kind of openly available pattern and incentive available to people, then my mind starts thinking like, what is going to come after Nick Fuentes? Like, who is going to make a name for themselves by flanking Nick Fuentes to the right? And are we going to see these kinds of escalating kind of radicalization dynamics where there's more and more incentives for ever smaller niche subcultures to essentially attack the last dominant niche subculture that's closest to them in order to kind of propel themselves into attention and dominance? And it seems to me like something like that might be at work. So I was just curious since he's a Zoomer, I was just curious if you have your finger on the pulse of kind of who in the Zoomer kind of online political, philosophical culture wars, like who's hot, whose stock price is increasing, whose stock price is decreasing, and kind of like, I was just curious if you had any kind of observation or diagnosis of the larger equilibrium.
I think the circles that I have traveled. You've name dropped Rosenstock.
Yeah, I know him.
Rosenstock is, I think maybe one of my deep philosophical opponents.
Oh, really? Why?
Yeah.
You hate Lacan and Hegel?
Oh, yeah. Well, I am very. I mean, I can go on for this forever, and that actually, despite that, I did tweet that I was teaching the course on Freudo-Marxism, of which I, to some degree, know well. I know perhaps a sort of broad view of it, but not maybe the particulars. If you ask me to define Lacan's four discourses, for instance, I can't tell you much. But I'm very critical of Lacan and Hegel, I think, in this sort of Hegelian Marxism. But Elliot Rosenstock has a nice blend of that, and Ayn Rand and Max Stirner that I find to be especially noxious. So if you want to have that debate, I would be happy to have the Justin Murphy sponsored debate between us to attempt to define political theory.
Oh, you're calling out Elliot Rosenstock for an epic battle?
Oh yeah, no, I want an epic battle, honestly.
It's actually an interesting idea. I have been thinking about hosting like bigger clusterfucks of live streams with like 4 or 5 people, but I'm trying to think of what would be good groups and what would be good formats. Are there other like internet personalities you would like to battle in addition to Elliot?
No, but I mean, I think I can get like a clash of the theory book titans. It would be.
Who are the theory book? Okay, good. So give me a lay of this land. Who are the theory book titans? Call them out by name.
All right, I gotta give props to my man Charles Anthony Rudig.
Who's that?
He's like the he was like the inventor, I think, of like a certain like post-structuralist genesis that we come out to. We have
What did he make, or what did he do?
there's like an obscure group that was called Dialectic Still Whilin, which was active, I think, from 2016 to 2018 or so, and then there's
How
like a
big was it?
large, probably like 5,000 people, 10,000.
Dialectic Still Be Violent, and this guy made it.
Yeah.
Okay, what's his name again?
Charles Rudig.
Does he have a public presence or no?
It's sort of, but I think that he prefers to stay offline since he's an actual adjunct of music profession and a fairly serious person, I think, when it comes to that. But one of the Deleuzian avant-garde left. What else we have? I don't know. There's like a lot of people. I have like a larger message about the I guess what you can say is sort of the lay of the land if you want that.
Go for it.
I mean, I think that the Groyper incidents are very amusing to me, kind of horrifying in some ways. These people just waiting on the wings, ready to call out Trump for not being strictly anti-Jewish enough. It's a little bit scary that we have such a strong movement in that direction. But the left is very much, I think, is still in a reeling position of melancholy. I don't really know whether or not it's good that anyone has they haven't come out and tried turning into some sort of stricter rhetorics of violence. It's that I think that most of us adopt, because of course it's the continental philosophy background, the idea of sort of being the self-positioned philosopher, the one who is simply sort of engaging it in the moments, just going on. Whereas I think that those people are not very philosophical at all. I know that there have been attempts to sort of philosophically codify, if not the alt-right, then sort of the new reaction. I don't just mean like Mencius Moldbug or Nick Land or anything like that, but I mean there's like American Affairs, I think, is the journal.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's Angela Nagle's mouthpiece, right?
Well, yeah, but it started by that guy who's like Crypto Trump. I don't know if the Groypers have come after him, but for the most part, these kids, as far as I know them, are not. There's no philosophical, real foundation. They don't view themselves in that way. They view themselves as instrumental actors, which is very crucial.
You're talking about the Groyper crowd.
Yeah, we don't have Carl Schmitt, as far as I know, of the Groyper crowd. And even then, Carl Schmitt was focused more, I think, on a concrete praxis of legislation as opposed to one of philosophical reflection. So perhaps, as always banal a point as it is, Zizek, I think, sort of exemplifies the problem when he says, don't act, think, which is his sort of classic canned line. I think that that's actually the problem, that we're thinking too much. And I think that in some ways, this is one of the things I have for the praise of the social justice warriors, which really I'm not opposed to at all, nor do I even think that's a true categorization of them. But even though we can consider themselves philosophically blind and deaf, they have made better efforts in the realm of concrete praxis precisely because they view themselves as instrumental actors and not as thinkers. And I think that does drive people somewhat up the wall, especially these sort of old leftist philosophers who can't seem to bear the notion that one has to engage in the concrete domain of the spectacle. But in terms of how this relates to the Facebook dynamic, is I don't think any of us are building some sort of dumb Groyper movement. I mean, for the most part, this is all sort of pure play. Whether or not that's condemnable is fine. I mean, I don't think your entire life should be dedicated to political action. But it's not as if I think in any real sense that we are very good at forming ourselves as instrumental actors in the same way that we've seen the developments of sort of the new alt-right Zoomers.
Okay, so you're saying that the Groypers see themselves as more instrumental actors, you think, and whereas left book, kind of post-left, what do you call it? Post-left book?
I call it post-left book, I think.
Right. Whereas post-left book, you're saying, does not see itself as instrumental actors.
No. I mean, there's a form of solidarity which is built, but I think it's also in some sense that, I don't know, maybe it's also more international. There's a good deal of quality to it that I think is transnational. There's people across the states. I know someone in Brazil, Germany, etc. Whereas I think that there was the LA incident against Dennis Prager or whatever it was a few weeks ago. I don't know if you could get 30 of us together in one room on a college campus and get us to go boo Dennis Prager or something like that. I don't know if that would. I don't know if they're accomplishing much either, to be honest. But they are getting people together, which is something that I can't say that I've done very well.
How many people in the post-left book circles are actually activists also, like DSA members and going to meetings and stuff like that?
I can't really say. I mean,
As a guess, would you like? What would you? I'm just curious what your
I mean,
sense of things would be.
I don't think many of them. I mean, I'm fairly active in the DSA chapter at Oberlin, for better or for worse. Maybe they'll cancel me for speaking to the famous Justin Murphy finally, and then
No.
it's okay. I think that I'll get some solid passes for riffing. Besides, we didn't get into like any really epic content. I mean,
Well, now is when I ask you what you think about scientific racism. No, I'm just kidding.
we can go on about this forever, but I've got some nice discourse analysis retort. We can pull out the weapons. Everything is a social construct.
Honestly, it's not an interesting discussion, so no, I'm not that into it.
But yeah,
so, right.
I don't know how many I would say are like activistically involved, but it might just be because they keep that private. But there's no like PSL or DSA members really that much, and I think a lot of them are very left-com. I think do you know Alice Farmer actually?
Oh, yeah, from Twitter, yeah, and from Cave Twitter, back when Cave Twitter was a thing.
Yeah, Alice Farmer is like one of the people that I sort of chill with, and like Alice Farmer, I think represents kind of like the extreme left-com pessimism that like, will participating in electoral politics even in the short term do anything? I think it does. I mean,
wait, you know Alice Farmer IRL at Oberlin?
No, I have met them IRL, but I've chilled with them online for the most part.
Right. Interesting. Right. So for people who don't know who Alice Farmer is, she's not like a big personality, I don't think, is she? But she's an active kind of internet person. And as you were saying, I think you put it very well into saying, would you say pessimistic left-com? So like this is a kind of style or aesthetic and kind of political ideological leaning that is pretty much like, yeah, full communism, fuck it all, kind of nihilistic, but I don't think anything's really going to happen, and I'm not like joining your stupid political groups, and I'm not going to like give anyone shit for not using the right words. I'm just kind of like, I want full communism now, and anything short of that I'm just going to like ignore it and just kind of like listen to my music with my headphones on. Is that fair, or what do you think?
I think it's part of it, I mean, comes from sort of a deep pessimism, which is that kind of I mean, I can't characterize them as a nihilist. That's such a bad word.
Oh, I didn't mean it as an insult, but some people think it's cool. It's like, it's badass or it's romantic to be nihilist. That's kind of the sense I meant it in.
That it's not so much, I think, like a pure kind of, libidinal nihilism, but one that's like very much like, electoral movements of, this is not a good year for them, let's say. Labor Party or anything in the States, the general clusterfuck in the States.
Word. So what else did you have on your mind that you might want to share with me and my audience?
Oh boy. I mean, I have a lot of things. I was actually kind of hyped up to talk about some concrete philosophy.
Okay.
I don't really.
You have the mic, man. Start riffing.
Nothing. I mean, I don't know. I think like oh boy, you're really trying to put me on the spot. No, I know I'm running out of time, so I don't have much. But I like. I think I don't like, my general interest has been sort of like the politicization of mental illness, which I think is sort of something that I've like wanted to talk about more, that I think overlaps with these things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in a super rush to get off. I'm just kind of starting to set expectations for this like new style of show I'm going to start doing. But we take our time. Go ahead.
Oh no, I mean, it's just like, I think that the thing that you see with these sort of like movement, I mean, there is like a libidinal element, I think, and of course this is why, again, I'm like not strictly anti-Freudian, but very critical of it in some sense, for reasons that are also very long and mostly about some sort of complex ontological arguments. But there is, I think, like at least at like the level of like ordinary language, something to be said about like the libidinal nature of kind of the youth going on, that I think reflects this, that like there are all of these things at once, sort of like leftist pessimism, social justice, the rise of the new alt-right, that all express certain modalities of a symptom. I can't say really what it is because I don't know, but I really think that like one has to like look at the internet sphere. To go back to what you said ages ago, it does act as a supplement, but it's not simply, I'm lacking contact with these people in real life, but sort of like the general kind of drive into anomie and alienation, which threatens us all mostly and threatens to destroy the social realm. these are all models of solidarity, but they're not very strong models of solidarity. But there is like a certain like neuroticism which underlies them that I can't quite speak to, that I've been working on. But I think, I don't know if that's like the message I have, because it's not as if I'm trying to say like, oh, my grand empire of shitposting, which I really don't view myself as a purveyor at all, as some sort of neurotic outpouring. It's that like, I think that like there's like a very complex web of relations between social media, real life, and sort of like the decay of community in real life and sort of the decay of community online, which are perhaps the reason that we can try to analyze these political movements as being tied towards a sort of pessimism. But we haven't really given a full expiation of what that pessimism consists in, nor how it is derived by certain political economic circumstances. But that was...
I get you. Yeah. So no one in these post-left Facebook groups think none of these people think that like shitposting is praxis.
Thank God, but no, I don't think anyone does.
Well, definitely, like there are leftists on Facebook who definitely think posting is praxis in one way or another.
They're also still a rare breed. I mean, what was it? There's this one person I knew who was, I think, one of the most major tankies. I won't name drop them for sake of their own identity, but like they had a breakdown after a year of being at like an Ivy League or after 2 years of being in an Ivy League university, just because of like how pessimistic their standards were, and the fact that like they faced, I guess, actual like concrete racism from like, rich white fucking, what is that? Oh my God, I can't remember it. Vineyard Vines wearing ass motherfuckers. And, like there's something that you kind of feel that like, even these people who thought there was like an outlet for the internet as politics have kind of decayed into a pessimism about it, because there's, when you like face like the concrete like realities of real life, which is like either people who exemplify kind of the actual instabilities and insecurities in the system, or just kind of like useless optimism like the Warren supporters, like you just realize it doesn't matter what the fuck you say. Anything you say is pointless.
Right. I mean, I kind of agree. That's why I don't weigh in on any real contemporary political disputes, because it's a total waste of time, I think. I have a question for you. What are there any interesting bloggers or YouTubers or podcasters who you think are really great that people don't necessarily know about, or that you think are under-recognized, that you want to share with me and us?
It's weird because I like don't partake in that. I actually just like read books, which isn't like a denigration against the people.
No, I was just curious.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I've like nominally watched BreadTube, which I actually hate. I never know why I like turn it on. I'm like, wow, I could have like figured this out by myself. But I feel like again, like sort of like the people who occupy that like Freudian thing on post-left book, I very much like The Last Psychiatrist. If you know them at all.
Oh yeah, I do. You follow them?
Yeah, I mean they've been inactive I think since 2014, but I think that the sort of like blend they have of a socially conservative Freudianism is very interesting to me, and I wouldn't demarcate it as being neo-reactionary in any real sense. But there's something I think that like one should maybe have pessimism, I suppose, about the ways in which like socialization and the symptom of increase under neoliberalism under the guise of liberation. That is one of the things I suppose I'm more interested in, sort of like a philosophical sense, is this question, I suppose, of like what the American symptom is. And I think that, again, someone I think should be taken with a grain of salt, perhaps, in terms of also being a liberatory praxis, but someone worth reading.
Okay.
But that's I think like the one thing that I would say. I don't really know if I have like, it's also, I feel like it's kind of mainstream among the people I talk to, but it might be kind of obscure.
Okay. Now, but when you think about, since you're admin for this group, you must have a pretty good proximity to what other people think is hot right now. Like, I'm just kind of curious in kind of Zoomer left book culture, like what's really hot right now? Who's hot? Who are people really kind of paying a lot of attention to and really interested in at the moment that I might not know of?
I actually am. I think that our like niche is like so small and kind of stupid. Like I think this is actually kind of, I mean, I can't give you names, but I can say that kind of the interesting trend is that like whatever happened to left book has decayed into like Mean Girls. like it's really weird. Like it's actually like kind of depressing that like these like former like groups that were full of like, you know, like nascent Marxist Leninists or whatever who were like, oh, we're gonna get together and revolution, have like turned into people who are, it's like literal popularity contests. Like I don't know what else to tell you. There's like these people who are like literally, it's like just like selfie groups now. It's like this like weird transition from like faux Marxist posting to like selfie groups is like kind of the trend. So I stay away from that stuff.
So in some sense, you're really deflating my interest in Zoomer Left book. Like I kind of saw it with more kind of sympathy and more of a benefit of the doubt, thinking like, oh, this is some sort of weird brewing kind of political culture that maybe I don't understand, but there could be something really meaningful going on here. And mostly from our talk today, I'm getting the general gist from you that no.
I mean, I think that for me, its significance is that like I've become fairly engaged in academic discussion. It's not. It doesn't really happen, I think, on the surface level where you're going to see us, you know, shit posting. But I don't know whether or not I would have read as many dense Europeans. I suppose if it weren't for the fact that I've been talking to people who are academically adjacent for a while, of which I know that you would consider yourself one of them. And again, I think that this is kind of the benefit, if you see it as a benefit, is the circulation and revival in political philosophy. But
okay. So in a second, I'll ask you like if you have any projects you're working on that you want to plug or future plans in the near future you want to share with us or whatever. But real quick before I do that, I want to respond to some threads in the chat. There's someone who's got some twisted ideas about me and my lifestyle, so it'll be fun to address that real quick. There's someone named Orville who's saying things like, "Is Justin ever going to get a job?" Hang on. Oh, what? Do you know this person?
No.
And then hang on. So here's the string of comments from Orville. The next one is, I mean, he can't live on the $2 a month he gets from Patreon.
Harsh.
And then he says, hang on, this is the best one. His girlfriend looks kind of upper middle class, but that doesn't last forever. And then he says she's paying the rent. I have no idea what he's talking about. So I just wanted to address this. First of all, I'm married, so girlfriend is diminutive. Thank you very much. She's more than a girlfriend. Second of all, we're more or less from the same kind of class background with a little bit of variation, but I wouldn't call her upper middle class. And she's not paying the rent at all, like at all. So I don't know where people get these ideas, but just thought I would. I thought I would explain that. And so the real answer to your question, Orville, is if you're a good man and you get married to a good woman and you're faithful and devoted to her, then you can decide 5 years into a career that you don't want to do it anymore. And you can say, fuck you to your boss, and you can carve out another path and go on a different adventure. And your wife will support you if you have a good relationship with her. So, not financially, but emotionally, she'll support you in taking that kind of risk. And so that's really all that happened with me. It's pretty simple story. It's not really that complicated. I've been married for 6 years, and I was the breadwinner as an academic. And now that I quit academia, we're more kind of 50-50 in terms of making the income. But I think we'll just leave it at that. So. And we're still happy and we're still together. So, quit talking shit about me and my wife. So, all right. Just wanted to, every now and then I like to respond to people talking mad shit in the comments. I mostly ignore it, but sometimes I like to discuss. Strawman says, Justin, take your shirt off. No, I won't be doing that. You have to pay extra for that. I need to see a super chat of like at least $100, and then we will consider it. Not guaranteeing anything. Does anyone have any questions for, what was your name again? Sorry.
Oh boy.
You want to go by initials, you said, right? I don't care.
No, I'll go by my initials for TRS, I think.
I'll just call you T because it's less syllables. But T, if you're concerned about anonymity, why are you showing your face?
I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't too easily Googleable from anyone who would know me.
I see. I see. But in 10 years, like people are going to be able to search for your face.
Oh yeah, I'm very excited. I think by that point I should be safe, unless, well.
So hang on. So real quick, this is coming from someone who says that cancel culture is over. What are you so worried about then?
There's I think that like it really depends on like what circles you're in specifically. I sort of guess that like the vast thing, you're not going to find like a real solid consensus of people who are going to come out and they're going to be like, oh, fuck you, man, you fucking straight white male or whatever. Because that never existed. But I still would qualify myself as being nominally significant within certain activist communities that are perhaps touchier, I should say, than the average, but it's very much a constrained minority that doesn't exist in mass. I suppose the thing that I want to dispel with is the notion that like the average college student is somehow this like extraordinarily radicalized individual when for the most part they're constrained, pessimistic at best, or either like live optimistic in the worst way.
So what's funny is now I'm kind of slightly wondering if perhaps cancel culture has just become so successful that for Zoomers it's become normalized and naturalized, so that you honestly can say to me you feel like it's not that big a deal anymore, it's kind of over. But maybe that's just in fact because it was at such a kind of strong level when you entered college and kind of academic social circles that you just took it for granted, and it's just normal to you now. Because it sounds like you definitely are doing like a lot of kind of background mental calculations about like what you can do and what you can't do for the social ramifications, right? I mean, that's pretty significant, I think.
I'd say that's true of most things in the world, though. Again, it depends on who you're talking to.
Well, I don't think so. Like when I was in college, if someone like if I like wanted to have some kind of like video chat like on the internet on Facebook, because Facebook basically started when I was in college. I'm pretty much a exact contemporary of Mark Zuckerberg, and like I can remember back to that time. Like if I wanted to do some sort of, if I wanted to say something edgy on the internet, that there was absolutely no fear that anyone could ever get upset with me for it. But more the fear would just be people will think I'm a loser for talking to like writing, like just blogging and no one's reading it, or making videos and no one's listening. The social anxiety was more like, are people going to think I'm a loser for like talking about this weird stuff on the internet? But there's absolutely no fear of kind of social repercussions from kind of ideological proximity to ideas or things. So I'm getting a sense that probably, yeah, to some degree, you might have just normalized it from your entrance into the scene.
I mean, there's always
you think I'm a boomer telling the kids to get off my lawn?
There's always something to be said about like the internalization of discipline. But I mean, I guess what I mean is there's no actual like interpersonal. I mean, for the most part, this is more me being cautious than a legitimate risk because I've never seen this happen.
Mm-hmm.
Now I joked about being canceled, but it's just more people being like petty. They'll snipe at you for petty reasons. But like when I started, there was very much the era of like direct confrontation. Like I won't give any anecdotes, I suppose, but my time in the performing arts, which is a real shithole. You have like people who are coming out here and like, you'll get in a group, you'll do some sort of group project, and it'll be like someone's going to like call you out in person. That doesn't happen anymore. I don't think that people. Zoomer left book big interest in horse ontology. All right.
Do any of the people in your Facebook or you're just like your general online spheres, let's say, like your friends and interlocutors, like do any of them make stuff or just shitpost? Like do any of them make videos or blog posts or like have or yourself, for instance, like are any of you or anyone like doing kind of more focused, longer term, ambitious projects of any kind that you want to plug or shout out or just mention?
I guess it depends really. I mean, I often like have considered writing like the infamous theory blog, but have like avoided it. I think for the most part that like what I do is almost a personal question. I think, and not something that I think is public. I mean, certain people are very involved. Again, there's other people I think that you might be more familiar with. And I've said that like Alice Farmer, for instance, is now working, I think, legitimately in like semi-publishing fields of some kind. She's very young. I can never pronounce their name. TXGen. Meyer is the Deleuze 18-year-old.
Sure.
Yeah.
I talked with her once. Yeah.
Yeah. They're also someone I think who's been like active in doing things, but again, also my fellow admins occasionally have done like actual work as adjuncts or have, written on things. But for the most part, I'd say most of us are just kind of like apathetic and self-interested, for better or for worse. It's not so much that I I don't really have like a concrete audience. I think that for the most part, if one asked me to like seriously go into my thoughts, the questions I have are like very niche. It's something that maybe very few people would do. I mean, I think that the primary thing I've been considering for a while is like a deeper question about like the origins of political ontology and the methodology of critical theory. But I don't think that there's like too many people who are going to like expressly going like I'm not going to like be able to go on BreadTube and be like, oh, here's the question about how is social constructivism metaphysically constructed? What are the epistemic limits of the subject? You know, it's not as snappy as like, you know, you go out there, you see Cuck Philosophy, who's making like a video about like Patrick Bateman and Baudrillard, which is very snappy, short to the point. I don't think anyone's very interested in what I have to do.
I get that. Yeah. Now, so I'm just kind of curious about your own projects, and so how do you see yourself moving forward on those things? Are you pursuing an academic career, or what is your game plan?
Who knows, man. First off, I want to plug for the future projects right here. I'm still open to some debates between the Rosenstock Facebook group versus the Barrel 2, specifically the question of to what degree can we revise Lacan? Can Lacan be revised? Very excited if that's ever going to happen. I don't know.
So is this basically what you're pitching, is the Barrel 2 versus what is the Freud Denk?
Yeah, Freud Stash.
Is that the proposal here? You're calling him out?
Yeah,
you're calling him out to a duel.
Check moment. Yeah, I wanna finally get the debate over whether Deleuze versus Lacan, based Deleuze versus cringe.
I'll talk to him. I'll talk to him, and I'll think about actually what I think would be even cooler is we add a few extra people to that who represent other kind of left book spheres. I don't know if you know. Do you know the Puma kids?
No, what is this?
They're called like the philosophy anti-marginalization.
Oh yeah. Oh no. PM. Actually, yes. I think Barrel 2 versus what we've called the Rosenhole versus the Philosophical Anti-Marginalization Union. If you can get Vladimir Lev,
they invited me on their podcast. They invited me to do their podcast a few weeks ago, so I talked to them a few weeks ago. They were cool. I enjoyed talking with them. Maybe I'll get all them, and then Elliot, and then you, in a big like clusterfuck of a live stream of like left book groups talking. That could be cool.
But yeah, in terms of personal projects, honestly, if I continue on to do anything in higher education, that's mostly because I think that a fee is an adjunct fucking PhD. You know, like you're a PhD student, you teach assisting as an assistant professor during it, would be recession proof for like 5 years, and then I'm never going to go into the grind because I don't want to be an adjunct for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I always tell younger people that when they ask me for advice on this sort of stuff is like, if you can get a funded PhD program, it's like a pretty good way to spend your 20s. You know, I wouldn't get excited or hopeful about a job because your chances are very low, and you might not even want it. You might not even be happy. But it's not that if you're like able to write long things with any amount of discipline, it's not that hard to get a fully funded PhD program in the US if you apply to like kind of mid-tier universities, like large research universities, but mid-tier. So big enough that they have a lot of money kind of just slushing around, but kind of mid-tier enough that they're not super competitive. It's not that hard to get a fully funded PhD program. And even if you don't want to go into academia, it's just like a decent, small but consistent paycheck pretty much for 4 or 5 years, six, maybe even six or up to possibly even 7 years, to just basically read and write papers and stuff like that. So like even if you don't want to go in academia, if you're not sure what you want to do in life, it's not a bad way to learn essentially and kind of build your intellectual powers over time.
I think like the main project that I want to work on, which again, no idea if there's any interest in this specifically, is trying to attempt to deal with the question of political ontology, which is very much, I think, significant to me, is the question of exactly what are social kinds and how do they exist, which it's not so much my question about how to write these things, but again, if I had like a nice infinite set of research time, I'd really want to look at, I suppose, traditions of critical realism and 20th century analytic philosophy and pairing these, I think, with questions about critical theory methodology. I don't know if I'm ever going to have a book that's going to come out, but you know, if you somehow happen down the line across my name 10 years from now, you see it, well, pick it up and see whether or not you're bored out of your mind of some questions about, I don't know.
No, that's cool. That's cool. Well, I kind of had this vague aspiration that like in 10 years, all the kind of like theory and philosophy hotshots who are like publishing big books that are getting a lot of buzz. Then people are going to be hearing about these names for the first time. Everyone's going to be like, "Oh yeah, that guy was on Justin Murphy's show like 5-10 years ago." That's what you're going to say.
You'll see, man.
Yeah, man. Cool. Well, I think we should probably wrap this baby up. But if you have any other parting words, anyone you want to shout out, or anything else you want to get off your chest before we roll, this is fun getting a short glimpse into your pocket of the internet.
Yeah, I think I had a request to give a shout out to the page Smashin' Libs on Instagram. I think that's smashin.libs, Libs. I don't know if I haven't. I just wanted to say, I think we gotta smash some libs. It's lib smashing time.
Are you a member of this, or you're just friends with them, or what? What are they?
I'd received a request for they're dedicated to smashing libs. I mean, we gotta own the libs these days. I was gonna say, I'm a big fan of the War on Christmas, but someone's got to come smash me, bash the.
Oh, you're a fan of the War on Christmas? We'll have to go to war then. So I'm a major crusader against the War on Christmas. I'm a defender of Christmas.
Bro, that's imperialist. You're canceled.
I already have it. I've done that.
Yeah,
post cancel, dude.
We should have. Yeah, I know, but we should have gotten some good discourse about Greta Thunberg. But I'm
what's your spicy take on Greta? I've already given mine. I dare not go back to that, but you can give yours if you want.
Bro, I am directly paid by Soros. Oberlin Board of Trustees. There is a literal man who works for the Soros Fund, and I receive scholarship money. Let's just say.
Wow, you're literally funded by Soros.
When you see people who are like, "Oh, the CIA funded Foucault," guess who's on the payroll this time?
Nice.
You're gonna find out. I don't really have anything deep. I mean, some sort of message of eternal struggle. I think, fist in the air.
Power to the people.
Yeah, but I don't know. I suppose the main thing is, I guess if there is anything I have to say for the Zoomer leftists is don't get too burnt out. But of course, saying don't get too burnt out is very different from the reality in which one is continually subjectified by neoliberal capital into becoming a soulless husk. So for that, I say also enjoy the Baby Yoda meme. He's so cute. Wow, it's epic.
Epic. Absolute unit.
Okay.
All right, dude. Well, TRS, it's been a pleasure meeting you.
Yeah, it's good, man. I'm grateful for coming on. Looking forward.
And I appreciate you've thrown down the gauntlet. I think it's been very good. You've called out a bunch of other left book groups. And no, this is good. I think I would, if you're listening to this, by the way, if you're in any of these left book groups, and you'd be interested in joining a big clusterfuck of a live stream debate battle with other left book representatives, hit me up, send me an email or DM me or message me on Twitter or whatever. I'm seriously open to putting that together. I think it would be interesting. TRS, you're kind of just like the first, probably in what will be a series of other talks where I do want to, essentially one of my goals is to map the entire kind of terrain of weird internet ideological subcultures. And so I'm very open to basically talking with people from all over these different pockets. And I think because it's all very mysterious and it's esoteric to people, like people don't know who these people are, what they're like, even just to get like an image of what is like a representative of this kind of like subculture look like or sound like. To me, that's actually really interesting and informative because you can't really find it elsewhere. So this is something I'm really interested in. If anyone listening to this represents some kind of like internet subculture, hit me up. We can talk.
I guess before you cut me off, then I'll at least lay down the gauntlet so that you have a better position of where I stand. But for the most part, I would say that I'm.
Oh, check it out! We got Charles Rudig in the house.
Oh shit!
This is the guy you called out, right?
Yeah. I'll say for the most part that I would define myself as almost like an orthodox Foucauldian, which is, I would say, neither really a left nor a right position, but simply one of interpretation. But for the most part, when I engage in real life, even though I have deep skepticism about any sort of defining reality or reality of the political, that I'm a generic demsoc. So basically, a nice sort of twist, I think. But for the most part, I would say demsoc Foucauldian, which is a paradox, but that's where I stand.
Okay, you're demsoc Foucauldian. By demsoc, you mean democratic socialist, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm trying to think. Did you see that Judith Butler apparently supports Kamala Harris?
Yeah, baby.
That's like pretty funny, isn't it? I thought that was quite interesting. What did you think of that about that?
I actually don't really like Butler, but it's not like I have like any better theory. I think that like whatever was said in Gender Trouble is a perfectly fine pragmatic map, but I kind of dislike the book. But it
Well,
doesn't.
I think a lot of people were genuinely surprised though to see that she's a Kamala Harris supporter. Like Judith Butler, in other words, is much more of a liberal than I think a lot of people imagine.
I don't know how I would characterize her, because I think that's sort of, well, I don't know. I mean, it's the same mistake Foucault made. Maybe neoliberalism has some sort of liberatory potentiality for the subject. I mean, this goes back even, I think, to the Deleuze book about deterritorialization. The like advance and acceleration of capital also removes context from the signs of sex on the body. Now, I don't know if Kamala Harris fits into this in some sort of way.
Yeah, that's exactly what Kamala thinks. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'd heard, I guess, that one of the people who told me that there's some sort of interest that like maybe Kamala Harris had like better deals for like the UC system, University of California. So like maybe there's some sort of selfish interest there, or maybe it was that Butler knew Kamala Harris's father, who was like kind of a Marxist historian or something. I mean, the more depressing one is that Donna Haraway gave money to Kamala Harris, but
Oh, really? She did too. So they're all Kamala Harris lovers. Maybe Kamala Harris is like a secret like revolutionary interest or something like that, and she actually has like private wine evenings with like the radical like left academics and assuring them that she's like actually like a revolutionary sleeper cell.
I mean, I think like the only thing that you can ever say is, there's a tired comment about, oh, blah, 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 identity politics has removed class analysis. I don't know if that's fully true here. I think the whole thing is kind of a complicated mess, but professors are bourgeois, what can I say? And in some senses, I also address myself as being like a bourgeois playboy of nonsense, philosophical nonsense. So, I mean,
bourgeois playboy of philosophical nonsense. That's a good tagline, man. I think you have a bright future in that.
I support Sanders. I'll say that much. So,
right on. Well, I wish you the best in your future endeavors as a philosophical playboy of nonsense. I think that's probably a growing market. So I think if you can find a way to execute your orthodox Foucauldian Demsoc politics and philosophies in a way that is synergistic with contemporary Zoomer left book culture, I think you could be well poised to be, one of the greater thinkers of your generation.
We'll see, man. Anyways,
it's been a pleasure, dude. Yep. Thank you for coming on quite randomly. Appreciate it, even though we don't know each other at all. So
good luck out there, man.
Thank you, man. I'll be in touch. Let me know if you ever need anything or if I can help you with anything. All right. And I'll let you know if that big clusterfuck debate gets together.
Hell yeah.
I'm seriously open to it. So actually, yeah, but before you go, talk to your buddies. I don't know if you know people online who want to do that, who you think would be fun.
Charles Riddick is throwing down the gauntlet. He is ready to join me against Philosophical Anti-Marginalization Union and the Rosen Hole.
Do me a favor, TRS, if you don't mind. I get like very busy. I get busy and distracted. So like if I forget about this, can you just like send me an email with like some of these people or try to follow up on this, and I'll follow through on it.
All right.
All right. Later, dude. Best of luck.
See ya.
Be safe out there. All right. Interesting. So, folks, this was probably in a series where I'm going to try to continue my search for understanding the weird pockets of internet ideological subcultures. This person I just spoke with goes by the abbreviation TRS. He is an admin for a Facebook group called Barrel 2, and it's a kind of one representative example of a much larger ecosystem of what he calls kind of post-left kind of Facebook groups, where essentially it's just like memes, it's shit posting, it's very kind of decontextualized, it's not really clear what people stand for. They have, apparently, as we learned from TRS today, very kind of, let's say, realistically kind of disengaged attitudes towards praxis and political possibilities today. So they don't take themselves too seriously. It's just quite chaotic jokes and memes and shitposting. But they clearly do have a kind of political center of gravity. So there are many different groups like this. The internet is now kind of exploding into these fragmented ideological subcultures. And pretty much no one really knows like what's going on in these groups or how to think about like what exactly they represent, what they think, who are these people. There's no way to get a kind of to put a face to these cultures and to get a kind of personal sense of what's going on in these groups. So yeah, I want to talk with people more and more. This has kind of always been an underlying kind of tendency in my podcast, talking with kind of random people from around the internet. And I just think you learn a lot this way, even if sometimes particular talks are not particularly exciting, or it might seem like it's going nowhere, or it might seem like, what is Justin talking to this guy about? This is going nowhere. Sometimes it might seem like that, but that's just, I think, a small price to pay to kind of explore this vast and kind of diverse, highly differentiated and fragmented kind of online ideological landscape. So yeah, I want to do more talks like this. I'll get better and better at finding cool people, and more and more focused, I think, in the conversations that I have. But this has always been a tendency of the podcast, and I'm now kind of splitting that off from the kind of main talks that I do. So I'll keep having, people that you know of, names you recognize, people who are recommended and requested. I'm going to keep having kind of my main podcast going with those people, where I'll continue having long talks as I have been up until now. And then I'm going to experiment with different kind of shorter series. So this was a short one. I'm calling them, we'll call it the sidebar. I'll have sidebars with kind of random internet people to try to learn, right? And try to just kind of increase randomness, essentially. Increase the randomness injecting into my system in the hopes of picking up weird, interesting new connections. And yeah, sometimes it might be a little slow. Sometimes it might be a little weird. Sometimes you might not know exactly what is going on or why we're talking or what. But it'll be an adventure, and it'll be a journey to try to map the weird different pockets of contemporary online ideology and subculture. So there you go. That was the first in this series of short talks I'm going to be doing with different representatives of these different subcultures. And I'll carry on also with the more focused and purposeful kind of longer chats with people who you're more likely to recognize and already know about. So, all right. That's all then for now. Please do subscribe to my channel and click the bell to receive a notification. I am now doing a weekly newsletter, folks. So every Friday morning, I send out through email my highlights from all of the best kind of weird independent thinkers on the internet. I've set up this elaborate system to follow hundreds of blogs and YouTube channels and feeds on the internet. And now every day of every week, I'm putting in some time to be monitoring what's coming out every day from kind of the most interesting eclectic mix of just independent minds who are writing on the internet, who are kind of foregoing institutions and just kind of building independent intellectual work over time. I'm trying really hard, in other words, to basically have the single best bird's eye view of this entire kind of weird internet intellectualism that's brewing right now. And every Friday morning, I'll send out an email with my highlights from everything, all the best stuff that I came across that week, essentially. So I think I've been doing this for 4 or 5 weeks now consistently. So I'm now prepared to announce this as something I'm going to be sticking with. I know that I can do it. It's gotten positive feedback, so I'm now happy to share this. So there's a link in the description below if that's something they're interested in. It's totally free. There's no sell here. And it's just something I'm doing to kind of help, I don't know, I guess I don't want to say unify or organize, because I'm not interested in unifying anything or organizing anything, but it's my way of kind of investing in the larger culture of online kind of radical intellectual creativity. So yeah, I'm going to be working on that for at least, for the foreseeable future. Every Friday morning, I'll send out an email with the best stuff from the week. So there's a link in the description. You can subscribe to that if you want. And otherwise, yeah. Glad to be back after Christmas. I hope you all had a Merry Christmas or a Happy Hanukkah or whatever you celebrate. But I celebrated Christmas, so I say Merry Christmas. God damn it. Thank you, folks. Hit me up if you have any questions, comments, any suggestions for future guests, whatever. If I missed your comment and didn't respond to it, apologies as always. But try me next time. Maybe I'll respond. Otherwise, I will see you sometime next week. Later, folks.